Listen carefully. Because what I'm about to say is not random. There is a reason you clicked on this message at this exact moment, and it has nothing to do with coincidence. Something in your energy has already shifted, even if you cannot explain it yet. That restless feeling you've been carrying, that silent pressure in your mind, that sense that something in your life is not stable anymore. It is not your imagination, but here is what you need to understand right now. What you are feeling is not confusion. It is awareness, because right now, there are two people quietly connected to your future in ways you do not fully see yet, and they are both making decisions, thinking they are in control, but they do not realize something very important. You are already aware of the situation, even if you haven't fully understood it yet. Something has been unfolding around you silently, not loud, not obvious, not dramatic, but strategic, small signs, sudden thoughts about certain people, unexpected emotional shifts when someone's name comes up, or a strange sense of direction when you think about your next step in life. You might have ignored it, you might have called it overthinking, but deep inside, you felt it. Something is happening behind the scenes, and it is connected to your future. Now listen closely. These two people are not what your mind first assumes. This is where most people misunderstand their own situation, because your mind tries to simplify things. It tries to say, it must be about love. It must be about the past. It must be about one specific person. But the truth is deeper than that. This is not just about emotions. This is about direction. This is about timing. This is about the path your life is about to take next. And both of these individuals are connected to different versions of your future. One of them is tied to what is familiar, what feels comfortable, what feels emotionally known, even if it is not aligned with your growth. The other is connected to something unfamiliar, something that challenges your identity, something that feels uncertain, but powerful at the same time. And here is the twist. Neither of them fully understands the role they are playing in your life. They think they are making independent choices, but in reality, they are both reacting to your energy shift. You see, there are moments in life when your energy changes before your reality does. And when that happens, people around you start responding differently. Some become drawn closer, some start pulling away, some begin to compete, without even realizing they are competing, not for you emotionally, but for the direction your life is heading. And you are standing at the center of this shift, observing, feeling, sensing, but not fully seeing the entire picture yet. That is why this feels confusing, because your awareness is increasing faster than the situation is revealing itself. Let me be very clear with you. What is happening right now is not random social interaction. It is not coincidence. It is not emotional confusion. It is a silent alignment process, and these two people are part of it. Whether they realize it or not, one of them represents a path that pulls you backward into emotional repetition. Patterns you already know, cycles you have already experienced, lessons you have already learned, but not fully released yet. The other represents a path that pushes you forward, into uncertainty, into growth, into a version of yourself you have not met yet. And this is where the internal conflict begins, because your heart remembers comfort, but your spirit recognizes expansion, and these two do not always agree. So now you feel tension, not because something is wrong, but because something is being decided, silently, internally, deep within your awareness. And here is what makes this even more intense. Neither of these two people can see the full picture. They do not know that their presence in your life is part of something larger. They think it is about timing or connection or circumstances, but it is actually about alignment, and you are the center of that alignment, not in an ego sense, but in a directional sense. Your decisions, your responses, your silence, your awareness, it is all shaping what happens next. That is why certain conversations feel heavier than usual. That is why certain memories keep returning. That is why certain names still carry emotional weight even when you try to move on, because something is still unresolved energetically, not necessarily between you and them, but between your past direction and your future path. And right now, Both of those paths are trying to stabilize. Both are trying to win your attention in different ways. But here is the truth. No one tells you clearly. You are not the one being pulled. You are the one choosing, even if it does not feel like it yet. And in the next part of this message, I'm going to show you something even deeper, because what you think these two people represent is not actually what is happening underneath it all. There is a hidden layer to this situation that changes everything, and once you see it, you will never look at your current situation the same way again. Chosen 1-2. People are quietly competing for your future, and they don't know you see it. Part 2. If you are still here, then something inside you already understands that this is not just another message, because what I am about to reveal now is the part most people never get to hear. In the last part, you started sensing it, that something around your life is shifting, that two separate forces, two separate directions, are quietly influencing your path. But now we go deeper, because the truth is, it was never just about two people in the way your mind imagined. It was never as simple as emotions, or relationships, or random connection. It was something far more subtle, far more powerful. Let me slow this down so you can actually feel what is happening. There are moments in life when people enter your story, not to stay, but to reveal direction, and both of these people, whether they realize it or not, are acting like mirrors. One mirror shows you your past, the version of you that reacts emotionally, that holds on, that repeats familiar cycles because they feel safe. The other mirror shows you something uncomfortable, a version of you that is unfamiliar, but growing, a version of you that does not rely on emotional certainty, but on inner expansion. And here is where the confusion begins, because your mind does not like uncertainty. So it tries to label everything. It tries to say, this is person A. This is person B. This is good. This is bad. But life is not presenting it that simply. What is actually happening is a silent internal test, not between two people, but between two versions of you. One version of you still wants emotional familiarity, even if it keeps you stuck, even if it repeats patterns you already survived because it feels known. And the human mind confuses known with safe, but the other version of you is starting to feel something different, a quiet pull, a deeper awareness that you are no longer meant to stay in cycles that only feel comfortable, but never expand you. And this is why both of these people feel important, because they are activating different parts of your identity. One activates your memory, the other activates your evolution. And when both are active at the same time, you feel what you can only describe as confusion, but spiritually, it is alignment pressure. Now listen carefully. Neither of these people fully understands what role they are playing. They think they are just interacting with you normally, but in reality, they are participating in something much bigger than their awareness, because your energy has changed. And when your energy changes, people either adjust to your old version or respond to your emerging one. That is why one connection feels emotionally heavy, not because it is wrong, but because it is familiar. And familiarity always carries history, and history always carries weight, and the other connection feels uncertain, unpredictable, sometimes even emotionally confusing in a different way, not because it is unstable, but because it is unfamiliar to your current identity. And this is the part you need to understand very clearly. Your life is no longer responding to your past decisions. It is responding to your current awareness. And awareness changes the entire structure of attraction, timing, and connection. That is why things are not settling the way you expect them to. That is why you cannot fully decide what you feel. That is why certain moments feel like hesitation even when nothing is clearly wrong, because something inside you is being updated in real time. And now, here is the deeper truth. What feels like two people competing is actually two timelines trying to stabilize around you. One timeline pulls you toward repetition, the other pulls you toward transformation, and you are standing exactly at the point where both are visible. But neither is fully decided yet, and this is where most people make their biggest mistake. They rush the decision. They try to force clarity. They try to label things too early. But what you are experiencing is not meant to be forced. It is meant to be observed, understood, and aligned with slowly. Because if you choose too fast, you choose from emotion. But if you wait with awareness, you choose from clarity. And those two choices lead to completely different futures. And now I need you to understand something even deeper. The reason this feels so intense is not because of the people, it is because of what this situation is forcing you to see about yourself. Your attachments, your expectations, your emotional patterns, your definition of love, loyalty, and direction. Everything is being revealed at once. And in the final part of this message, you are going to understand what the real competition actually is, and why neither of these two people have as much control over your future as you think they do, because the final decision was never in their hands. If you are still here, then listen very carefully, because this is the part where everything you have felt finally starts to make sense, not emotionally, not randomly, but clearly. What you have been experiencing was never meant to stay confusing forever. It was meant to lead you here, to this exact moment of understanding. In the last part, you were told something important, that what looked like two people competing for your future was not as simple as it appeared. And now I need you to go even deeper with me, because the truth is about to shift the entire way you see your life. What if I told you there were never two people controlling your future? What if I told you there were never two external forces fighting over your direction? What if I told you the entire situation was a reflection, not a competition? Because here is what has been happening all along. These two individuals were never the source of the conflict. They were the symbols of it. They were mirrors placed in your reality to show you something you were not ready to see directly. One of them represented the version of your life that keeps repeating old emotional cycles. Not because it is evil, not because it is wrong, but because it is familiar. And familiarity has a powerful grip on human emotion. It makes you believe, this is what I know, so this must be right. Even when it limits you. The other represented something different. Not perfection, not fantasy, but expansion, uncertainty. Growth that does not come with emotional guarantees, and that is why it felt unstable. Because anything that forces you to grow first feels uncomfortable. But now listen closely. Neither of these paths was ever chosen for you. They were revealed to you. And that is a very different thing, because revelation is not instruction. Revelation is awareness. And awareness gives you responsibility. Now here is the truth that changes everything. The real competition was never between two people. It was between two internal states inside you. One state is built on emotional memory. The other is built on self-awareness. One keeps asking, what feels safe? The other keeps asking, what is aligned with who I am becoming? And these two voices have been active in you long before you even noticed this situation externally. That is why this feels so intense. Because the external world is only reflecting an internal decision that is already in progress. Now let me take you even deeper. There is something most people never realize in moments like this. When life brings emotional confusion involving people, it is rarely about the people. It is about identity transition. Because identity is what decides attraction. Identity is what decides attachment. Identity is what decides what you tolerate, what you release, and what you pursue. And right now, your identity is no longer stable in the old version of your life. It is shifting, quietly, gradually, but permanently. That is why certain emotions feel heavier than usual. That is why certain connections feel unclear. That is why your mind keeps trying to solve something your spirit is trying to outgrow. And now I need you to understand something very important. Nothing external can finalize your future, while your internal identity is still shifting. That is why things feel unresolved. Not because something is missing, but because something is changing. Now let's bring everything into clarity. Those two people, they were never competing for you. They were revealing you. One revealed your emotional attachment patterns. The other revealed your potential direction. and both together forced you to see something you normally avoid: your own power of choice. Because here is the truth most people don't want to accept. You are not being chosen. You are choosing. Every emotional response, every silence, every attachment, every withdrawal, every moment of awareness, it is all shaping the outcome. And now the deeper layer: even the confusion you felt was not a mistake. It was a process, because clarity only arrives after internal resistance is fully exposed. And that is what has happened here. Your internal resistance has been revealed. Your emotional patterns have been exposed. Your deeper desires have surfaced. And your future direction is now visible, if you are willing to see it without fear. Now I want you to imagine something very clearly. Imagine the version of you that is no longer confused, no longer pulled emotionally, no longer reactive to old patterns. That version of you already exists, not in imagination, but in possibility. And every decision you make right now is either aligning you with that version or delaying it. That is the real meaning of this entire experience. Not two people, not external conflict, but internal evolution. And now, we reach the final truth. The one thing everything has been pointing toward. The reason this situation felt so intense. The reason it felt like something was competing for your future is because your future is not something that can be taken from you. It is something that responds to you. Nothing outside of you has authority over your direction unless you give it emotional power. And the moment you stop reacting blindly, you start seeing clearly. And when clarity arrives, confusion loses control. Attachment loses control, fear loses control, and only awareness remains. So here is what you are being guided toward in this final moment. Not a person, not a choice, but a state of being. A state where you no longer see your life as something happening to you, but something responding to you. And once you reach that awareness, you will understand something very simple. There was never a battle over your future. There was only a discovery of your power. And now, the message ends where it was always meant to end. Not with confusion, not with dependency, but with clarity. You are not lost. You are not stuck. You are not being pulled. You are being awakened. And the moment you understand that fully, the entire illusion of conflict disappears. Because what you were calling two forces fighting for your future was actually life showing you that your future is already responding to your awareness. Final truth: nothing is competing for you. You are stepping into alignment with yourself. If you are still here after everything, then something inside you has already changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly. Because real shifts in awareness do not announce themselves. They settle inside you, like a truth that finally stops arguing with your mind. What you just went through in this message was not just information, it was recognition. And recognition always leaves a residue in the mind, a feeling that something is different now, even if nothing outside has changed yet. Now listen carefully. After moments like this, most people make one of two mistakes. Some immediately try to go back to their old emotional patterns. Old thoughts, old attachments, old confusion, because familiarity feels like control, even if it is limiting. Others try to force meaning too quickly. They start overanalyzing everything, every person, every memory, every sign, trying to solve what was never meant to be solved intellectually. But what you are meant to do now is neither of those things. You are not meant to chase clarity, and you are not meant to return to confusion. You are meant to pause internally and observe what has changed inside you, because something has changed, even if you cannot fully name it yet. Your perception has been slightly adjusted. Your emotional reactions are not exactly the same as before. Certain thoughts don't feel as powerful as they used to, and certain truths feel more obvious than ever. This is what awakening actually looks like, not fireworks, not instant transformation, but subtle displacement of old identity structures. Now here is something very important you need to understand. After awareness increases, Life does not immediately become simple. It becomes clearer, but not easier. Because clarity forces responsibility, and responsibility forces choice. And this is where your real journey begins, not in understanding the message, but in how you respond to it moving forward. Because now, you cannot unknow what you know. You cannot fully return to the version of you that was unaware of patterns, energy shifts, and internal cycles. Something has already opened in your perception, and that opening does not close, it only expands. Now let me bring you back to something important from earlier. Those two forces you felt were competing around your life. You may notice something strange now. They no longer feel as external as they once did, because clarity always removes projection and replaces it with reflection. You start realizing it was never about them having power over your direction. It was about your awareness of your direction. And now the real question is not, what will they do? It is, what will you continue to do with your awareness? Because awareness without direction becomes confusion again. But awareness with intention becomes transformation. And this is where your life begins to shift in a very real way. Not because something outside changes first, but because your internal interpretation stops repeating old patterns. Now listen. There is no urgency in this moment, no pressure, no invisible battle continuing in the background, just awareness settling into clarity. And in that clarity, something very simple becomes visible. You are not behind, you are not late, you are not being tested in the way fear tries to suggest. You are simply becoming conscious of your own patterns in real time. And that consciousness is what changes everything, not instantly, but permanently. So as this message ends, don't look for more signs. Don't search for hidden meanings everywhere. Don't try to force conclusions. Just allow yourself to exist in the version of you that sees a little more clearly than before. Because that alone is already a shift, and shifts like this always expand, never reverse. Final reminder, nothing is competing for your future, because your future is no longer something happening away from you. It is something. If you are still here, then this is no longer just curiosity. This is connection. Because people who reach this point are not just watching a video. They are processing a shift inside themselves, and now that you have seen everything, there is only one thing left to understand. Not about two people, not about confusion, not even about the story you thought this was. It is about what remains when the noise stops, when the emotional guessing ends, when the mind finally slows down enough to see clearly. Because what you have experienced through this message was never meant to give you control over others. It was meant to give you awareness of yourself, and now something important happens, not outside of you, but inside of you, a quiet settling, a subtle realization that you cannot fully unsee what you have understood now, and that is the real shift. Not dramatic, not loud, but permanent. Now listen carefully. From this moment forward, your awareness will start to respond differently. You will notice patterns you ignored before. You will feel distances you never questioned before, and you will sense clarity where confusion used to live. Not because the world changed, but because you did, even slightly, even quietly, even internally. And this is where most people underestimate their own transformation. They wait for external proof, when the real change has already started inside their perception. Now I want you to understand something very clearly. You were never meant to stay in confusion. You were meant to grow through awareness, and awareness always brings responsibility. Responsibility over your thoughts, your emotional reactions, your decisions, and your direction. And now that responsibility is in your hands, not anyone else's, not any external forces, yours. So, as this message comes to its end, I want you to take a moment and simply breathe, not to analyze, not to interpret, just to acknowledge that something inside you has shifted. And if this message helped you see even a little more clearly, then I want you to do something simple but powerful, not for me, but for yourself. Subscribe to this channel not as a habit, but as a commitment to your awareness. Because every message here is designed to remind you of what you already feel deep inside, but often forget in daily life, and if you feel guided, leave a comment and write, "I see clearly now." Because words like this are not for others, they are for reinforcing your own awareness. And finally, share this with someone who is still lost in confusion, because sometimes clarity becomes stronger when it is passed on. Now this is where the story ends, but this is not where your journey ends. It only continues in a different way, a quieter way, a more aware way. You are not the same person who started this message, and you will never experience it the same way. Again, the illusion of conflict is gone now, and what remains is understanding. Walk forward with that, calmly, clearly, consciously. This is your final calling. And now you return to your life, more aware than before.